Chael Sonnen has not taken kindly to UFC lightweight Paddy Pimblett accusing him of clickbait. The Brit was strongly rumored to be fighting Donald Cerrone, but Paddy appeared on Michael Bisping's podcast where he denied the fight was happening and accused Sonnen of stirring the pot for clicks. In response, Sonnen made a video on his YouTube channel and said the following: "Is Paddy one stupid son of a bitch? Paddy woke up and took a handful of stupid pills and goes on Michael Bisping's show. On Michael's show, Paddy accuses me of using his name for clickbait. Clickbait is something that is done by scumbags. I don't do it. I would never do it, and I'm also irritated that Paddy thinks his name is big enough that Chael Sonnen would clickbait him. That might sound arrogant, but that's the truth. It pissed me off." Pimblett has quickly become a star in the UFC despite only making his Octagon debut in September. Despite being linked to fighting Cerrone, Paddy has another opponent in mind. During the interview with Bisping, he mentioned he'd be interested in fighting Jared Gordon after Gordon mentioned his name in a post-fight interview, and after he also beat his teammate. Sonnen, meanwhile, is dumbfounded that Pimblett would not want to fight Cowboy. He also explained how the idea of that particular matchup came about. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting with Cerrone. As I'm having this conversation, Cowboy's texting Sean Shelby saying, "Does Paddy have an opponent?" I asked him, "Can I talk about this?" He said yes. So that's what we did. Why the hell aren't you fighting Cowboy Cerrone? I wasn't sitting there texting Shelby. Cowboy was. Cowboy said he wanted the fight. I was sitting there when Cowboy asked him, and all of a sudden you're blaming me for clickbait. I'm blaming it on you for turning down Cowboy. During a recent livestream on his YouTube, Michael Bisping was asked by a fan, "What do you think about the fans disrespecting Ngannou's skill set in the lead-up to his fight with Gane?" He had the following response: "I think when we're talking striking skills, I think the skill side does go to Gane, but that doesn't mean he wins. When I fought Dan Henderson at UFC 100, we all know how that ended, right? I was the better striker skillfully, but it didn't matter. I remember when I would watch tape on Dan Henderson with my old boxing coach. He would say things like, 'Oh, this guy is terrible. You've got to box his ears off. You're going to jab his head off. You're going to smoke him,' etc., etc. And we know how it ended. It ended with me unconscious on the floor for quite some time, because he was effective. You go forward and you swing like hell. I mean, he was also on TRT, the cheating fuck, the crinkly old bastard. Anyway, fair play to him." Sean O'Malley doesn't have much interest in facing Cody Garbrandt next. O'Malley and Garbrandt have taken shots at one another over the past year that continued at last month's UFC 269 press conference. So, after Garbrandt was knocked out by Kai Kara France in his UFC flyweight debut, he hinted at possibly moving back up to 135 pounds to fight O'Malley. Now, after hearing about Cody Garbrandt's callout, Sean O'Malley says unfortunately he isn't interested in the bout. Although beating a former champion would be big for his resume, he doesn't think beating Cody does much for him. He also believes the former champ is suffering from CTE, which added to his disinterest in facing him. "Dude, he's not getting that fight with me. It doesn't make sense for him to say that. I wonder if that's CTE. He's been knocked out 5 times in the last 2 years. That fight's not happening, at least not next. It just literally doesn't make sense." O'Malley certainly has a point that Garbrandt's stock has fallen off. However, there is no question a scrap between the two would be massive. Henry Cejudo believes Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega at UFC 266 was the greatest fight in MMA history. Volkanovski was looking to defend his belt for the second time as he took on Ortega in a highly anticipated bout. The two coached The Ultimate Fighter, and on the show, they began to dislike one another, which only added to the excitement of the fight. Although Volkanovski won the bout by unanimous decision and won 4 rounds, the fight appeared much closer than that. Both men had success on the feet, but on the ground, Ortega had the champ in a guillotine and a triangle choke that somehow the Aussie got out of. For Cejudo, he says that back and forth and the swing of momentum makes it the best fight ever. The one I really like the most, I'm going to have to go with Volkanovski and Brian Ortega, Cejudo said on his podcast with the Schmo. That isn't, to me in my eyes, the fight of the year, but this is the greatest fight in mixed martial arts history. It displayed striking, defense, escaping from submissions, takedowns, takedown defense. I mean, it was everywhere. Henry Cejudo saying Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega is the greatest fight of all time is certainly up for debate, as many didn't even view that as the fight of the year for 2021. Instead, that honor went to Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, but there is no question Volkanovski-Ortega is up there for 2021 as one of the best fights. It's also surprising to see Cejudo give Volkanovski praise, as he has taken shots at the featherweight champ as he has angled to fight him. Triple C has been vocal about the fact he thinks he can beat Volkanovski and wants that challenge.